Hey, what's up, guys? Kobayashi Island, episode 6. This episode, we're going to kind of work our way around the coastline of this little peninsula that we've been working on. There's quite a good amount of area that is still left untouched and is gonna get addressed in this episode. Right now, you're looking at the area that's sort of directly next to Old Town by the cemetery, finishing out sort of the little industrial harbor area that in episode 2, I remember I said, I don't really know how I'm going to finish out the other side of this. So here it is. And then I'm going to work our way kind of along the coast there towards those two train stations up on the hill, and then under the bridge and over onto the other side of the peninsula where it's going to be much more urban. So for this little area right here, kind of tucked underneath these train stations, my thought was that this is really the nice ocean view. This is one of the few places in the city that's directly along the water. So I wanted to kind of make buildings that had balconies and sort of medium density complexes where a lot of people could live, have their own personal view of the water. The land value is really high. You'll see me in a little bit give them all pools, rooftop pools, and I think this little stretch here looks really nice. And then up above it, some houses, and then up at the top we get to the train station and some shops and stuff up along the train station. One of the things I do here is kind of make like a stairway up to the train station from the water, so that people don't have to zigzag their way up the hill along the actual roads. You can make stairs much steeper than roads in terms of how they look. And you can make them however you want, but in order to make them look kind of real, you want the roads to not be incredibly steep, and in reality, like if you had a really steep hill, it would snake its way up the hill in order to decrease the incline, rather than just go straight up. But stairs, being that they're stairs, you can go up much steeper. So that I'll also hit with the invisible path to get the citizens actually walking up the stairs there and taking that as a shortcut. I do another big block of residential houses here. I'll probably skim through in the time lapse, just because we've seen it before in the last 2 episodes, just how these blocks get made. Just as a general philosophy of building this playthrough here, I'm not 100% going for accuracy, obviously, or I wouldn't have made a lot of the decisions that I made already. I'm kind of, as I always do when I play cities, I'm going for a mix of realism and what I think is going to look really cool and what I want to see, so it's not always going to be a one-to-one, just like going for the absolute most authentic, real looking copycat sort of styles and buildings and neighborhoods, which a lot of people do, obviously love building that way and take a lot of pride in making their stuff look super true to a real place. I'm not 100% on the same page about that. I feel like it's good to get inspiration from real places, but it's kind of boring if you're just literally copying it and getting mad at yourself if it's not a perfect copy. I think it's kind of fun to take a good amount of liberties, to take a style from real life and take specific details from real life, but for a lot of things, kind of just base yourself off the style of the area and then do what you think is going to work best in what you're trying to do and what you think is going to be fun to make. But obviously I do reference Google Maps a lot. You'll see me later on in this episode pull up Google Maps, specifically looking for types of areas to copy or to get close to copying. So almost done with the residential area here. I started using these retaining walls because I felt like that was kind of realistic, sort of along cliff edges to block stuff from falling onto your house. You kind of need a big wall like that. Do it in a few other places. what you'll see me do here in a second is build like a park along the water here at the peninsula, the very edge of the peninsula. There's a lot of debate in my mind before because it's going to be one of the most prominent areas in the city. So I played around with putting some buildings here, thought about putting more houses here, but in the end I kind of decided to go with a park because it felt like kind of area that's so prominent that the city might decide that this is going to be a strategic place, you know. Like for instance, in San Francisco, there's a point on a peninsula where it faces the ocean, just sort of like this, right on the corner of the city. And during World War II, it was a military base because it had the best view of the ocean and incoming sort of attacks and stuff. So that never really got turned into development like the rest of the city. It was always sort of like a big open area, and eventually that got turned into a park. So I don't know if I wasn't necessarily thinking that would be the history of this area, but I was sort of thinking that this is such a prominent area that the city might not necessarily divide up and sell this land to individuals. They might keep it as their own, and eventually over time they just decided, okay, hey, let's turn this into a park. So that was sort of my thinking with this. So now we're sort of moving along to the other side of the peninsula, to the more urban half of it. You saw me just put down a school and a couple houses, or apartment buildings. I really am happy with how these apartment buildings turned out. You'll see me in a little bit really detail the back of it, the pool and some chairs and stuff. And I actually did this in a lot of areas because of how well this turned out here, and giving them like a little private patio. This whole area along the cliff here in the backside of the peninsula, my thinking is that this is going to be sort of have like a big view of the main area in the city, where it's kind of going to be the last dense urban area before it becomes residential and then eventually farms and stuff. So it'll be like right across the river from where it's, you know, really dense, but it's kind of like spilling over onto this side. I really was making an effort to keep the size of the buildings pretty consistent and low, where it's not more than 6 or 8 stories at the most. I think this building that I'm placing down now, skinny building, is about the tallest it goes, but because it's right down against the water, it's still pretty much at the same height. This was pretty tricky here because there's such a huge elevation change between the road along the water and the road up above, that for pretty much all these buildings that go in here, I had to build out sort of a backside with tunnel blocks to make it so that it was flush with the upper road, and there wasn't like a huge gully in between the building and the upper road. And that actually gave a good amount of space to be able to do some fun stuff with it, make some patios and pools and things like that. One of the things I also decided to do here was build another staircase similar to the one on the other side of the peninsula, so that citizens can kind of take a shortcut between the lower road and the upper road without having to walk all the way around, because the only ways to get across here are way down by the main bridge and then up towards the right along that other bridge over there. So to get down here with a car is a little inconvenient, but to walk it should be pretty easy because it's just a block from the train station and down the stairs. I think I'm going to end up using these staircases between the buildings a lot, because that's definitely something I want to do with the city, is have it be really multi-level in terms of elevation, and make lower areas and higher areas, and kind of play with height a lot. I think those tunnel blocks are really pretty great for that kind of stuff, because it just allows you to do things so much quicker than retaining walls and ploppable asphalt. So you kind of see me making my way down the peninsula here, placing buildings and stuff. I think this strip of buildings here is kind of thin. I wish I did have like maybe another block of thickness here, where there was like 2 blocks up there by the train station, and then it went down to the road, but it's a little too late for that. I think depending on how the stuff across the river looks, though, it'll kind of blend together with that, and I think it'll end up looking good. it'll be really dense on the other side of the river. It won't look like a strip of high density buildings like it does now. It'll look more like sort of like an overflow of what's happening on the other side of the river. Right now, I'm pulling up Google Maps, like I said earlier, kind of look at how to do this riverside walkway area. There was a few different ones that I looked at. I found along the water in Tokyo, because they have a lot of rivers there going through the city. It doesn't seem super complicated. It's just a path along the water and some green area next to it. So I didn't go crazy with this. I was originally thinking that this would be more of like an area where ferries could come and take you across the other side of the river, but I didn't end up going for that, and I didn't end up putting any parks or docks or any sort of thing to attract people to walk along this path. So eventually I think I might need to figure out some good way to get people to walk along here, because right now they don't really do that, and it would be nice if people did walk along the water here. So eventually I'll come back to that. One of the things that I do want to play with a lot in this playthrough is kind of like the rivers going through the city and water mixing with dense urban areas. So I think as I get further along, I'm going to continue to add rivers, carve out a lot of the land area that's currently on the map, and make it much more full of water. One of the things that they have a lot in Tokyo is sort of like man-made shaped islands, so I definitely want to play with that as well. So once I kind of carve out a lot of land, then I'll probably go through and add back in other areas that are more man-made shapes, so that like maybe the airport is like more like on a man-made island that's very square shaped or something like that. I kind of have yet to be seen how and where I can do that, because I think there's a lot of terraforming that needs to happen before I can get into that, but I think that'd be for sure interesting to do. Almost done with the episode here. Just finishing out these last few houses along the backside of the peninsula under the bridge. Next episode I think is going to be fun, because we've pretty much finished out a lot of what I was planning on doing with this peninsula here, and we're going to cross the river and start planning the downtown, specifically the main train station. And we'll see how much further we get along than just the train station. I think that's going to be a big project, because I really want it to be a central train station with 6 or 8 different platforms, where each line has its own platform, and really a lot of people walk through there. So look forward to that. I think that episode we're really going to get into the foundations to start making higher density stuff. So until next time.